15 salt-curing tricks kept a frontier family's pork and beef sound all winter, with nothing but a barrel of salt and patience. And the first 4 decide everything before a single grain touches the meat. Before I take you into it, if you like the old ways told plain, pull up a seat and subscribe to the Root Cellar, so the next forgotten story from the frontier finds you by the fire. Now, the whole business lived or died before you ever packed a thing. It started with the cold. Trick 1. They butchered in the cold snap, late fall, when the air bit your knuckles and the hog hung stiff in the frost. Why then? Because the meat had to be chilled clean through. Warm meat took the cure poorly. Salt couldn't work fast enough on it, and the thing spoiled from the inside out while the outside still looked fine. So they waited for the first hard freeze, when the season itself did half the work. If you've ever wondered how they did it before the first icebox, stay right here by the fire. Trick 2. They didn't rush from the killing to the salt. That carcass hung overnight in the cold, sometimes a full night and a day, before a single grain touched it. You wanted the deep heat gone, the heat down in the hams, close to the bone, where the last warmth hides. Salt too soon, and you'd trapped that warmth under a crust. Let it chill right through, and the cure had a fighting chance. Trick 3. The salt itself. And here's where most folks go wrong today. Coarse rock salt, never fine table salt. There's a reason. That coarse grain drew the moisture out slow and steady, day after day, pulling the water that rot needs to live. Fine salt? It packs down, cakes hard, and seals the surface before it's done its job. Old-timers ran their hands through the barrel and knew the feel of the right grain. Rough, heavy, gray-white, cold against the palm. Trick 4 was the balance. The salt-to-meat ratio. No scale told them exactly. Well, they'd weigh a cut, but mostly they judged it by feel and by weight in the hand. Enough salt to preserve the whole piece. Not 1 grain more because too much and you ruined the flavor, left it hard and bitter as a lick block. That line, enough but not too much, was the first real test of a curer's hand. And I'll say this plain, the way my folks would want it said. These are old ways, told for the story of them. Times have changed, and the rules with them. If you ever set your hand to this, mind today's food safety rules first. Honor the knowledge, but don't gamble your family on it. So, cold meat, the right salt. That was the start. Only the start. Because you could get every one of those 4 right, and still lose the whole ham. Cold meat and the right salt were nothing until you knew the one place spoilage always started first, and where a careless hand lost it all. Down around the bone, down around the bone. That's where spoilage always started, and that's where the real craft began. So the old-timers rubbed the salt in hard, working it deep around that bone where rot took hold first, and from there the barrel itself became the battleground. Trick 5 was all in the hands. You took a fistful of that coarse rock salt, and you drove it into every surface of the cut. Not a gentle sprinkle. You worked it. You pressed it into the seams, packed it tight against the joint, forced it right down to the bone where the danger lived. A careless hand left a soft spot, and a soft spot was a ruined ham. The grain of that salt bit into your palms, and you kept rubbing anyway. Then came the packing. Trick 6, flesh side down, in tight layers. Each cut went into the barrel face down, buried in salt, and no 2 pieces ever touched bare. Salt between every one, a cut of pork, then a bed of salt, then the next cut laid careful on top. So every inch of that meat sat wrapped in white. And here's the one that mattered most. Trick 7. You packed so tight no air could reach the meat. Air was the enemy. Air was the thing that turned a good cure rotten from the inside, no matter how much salt you'd used. Remember this one if you remember nothing else. Air was the enemy. A loose barrel with a pocket of air trapped in it would spoil the finest hog you ever raised. Trick 8 was a quiet little detail, passed hand to hand from one family to the next. A pinch of saltpeter in small measure, mixed in with the salt. It held the color of the meat, kept it that good deep red instead of a dull gray, and it guarded against the worst kind of spoilage down in the heart of the cut. A small thing, but the old-timers swore by it. Then the weight. Trick 9, a scrubbed stone pressing the meat down. A good river stone, washed clean, set right on top of the packed cuts. Its own weight pushed the meat down, and as the salt drew the water out, a brine rose up on its own and covered everything. That stone held it all under. Now how did they know the cure was truly taking? They watched. Trick 10. They watched the brine that rose over the meat. If it came up clear, the cure was working. But if that brine ran cloudy or carried a sour smell when you leaned over the barrel, something had gone wrong down inside, and you pulled the meat and started fresh rather than risk the lot. And about halfway through, Trick 11, they overhauled the whole barrel. Unpacked it, every piece, and repacked it the other way round. The cuts that sat at the bottom came up to the top. The top ones went down. That way every piece cured even. None left too long, none left too little. So the barrel was packed, the brine was watched, the meat was overhauled. But salt only started the work. What finished it, what sealed a whole winter's meat against the deep snow, hung waiting in the smokehouse, over a slow fire. In the smokehouse, over a slow fire. That's where the salt's work got sealed for good. After the salt had drawn and drawn, they hung the meat over smoldering hickory or applewood, and the smoke locked in everything the salt had begun. But before the meat ever met the smoke, some old-timers added one more thing to the cure. Trick 12. They stirred molasses or brown sugar into the salt for a milder cure, sweeter and gentler on the tongue. This was the batch the children favored. You'd see a big spoon working thick black molasses down into that rock salt, turning a hard, sharp cure into something a young one would eat gladly through the whole winter. A small kindness, packed right into the barrel. Now Trick 13. Once the salt had done its long work, they carried the meat out to the smokehouse and hung it high. Slow hickory or applewood, always. Never a roaring fire. Just a low, steady smolder that filled the little log shed with blue smoke for days. That smoke sealed what the salt had started. It laid a skin over the meat, dried the outside hard, and shut the door on the one enemy that ruined everything. Air. Air turned a good cure rotten, and the smoke pushed it out for the last time. Trick 14 came after the smoke settled. They took the finished hams and wrapped them in cloth and burlap, snug and tight. Then those hams went up on a rafter in the cold dark of the cellar, hung high and away from mice and damp. Wrapped like that, a ham could ride out the whole winter without a spot of mold, without a nibble taken. You'd walk down those cellar steps in January and see them hanging there in the dark, quiet and sound, while the snow piled against the cabin door. And then, Trick 15. The simplest one. The hardest one. Patience. A proper cure took weeks, sometimes the better part of 2 months, and there was no rushing it. The salt worked on its own slow clock. A man who hurried it, who pulled the meat too soon, lost the whole thing. His meat and his family's winter, gone together. Ask yourself honest. Could you wait 2 months for a single ham? No peeking, no shortcut, just faith in the salt and the cold and the days ticking by. And here's the whole of it. That's how they did it. No icebox, no freezer, no hum of a machine in the corner. Just salt, a barrel, and patience. That was enough to keep a family fed clear through the deep snow, from first frost to spring thaw. Come the warm weather, you'd find that salt barrel scrubbed clean and empty, standing in the corner. Its winter's work all done and eaten. A whole family carried through the cold, on nothing more than what I've told you. Now I'll say this plain. These are old ways, told for the story of them. The world has learned a good deal about food safety since, and modern folks ought to mind today's rules before they try any of it. I'm not handing you a recipe. I'm handing you a memory. But there's something honest in it, isn't there? Knowing your grandparents kept a whole family alive through the dark of winter with salt, a barrel, and the patience to wait. That knowledge nearly got lost. If you want the next forgotten story from the old frontier, stay close by the fire a while longer. I'll have another one for you soon.